Ladies and gentle sheep, the king himself, Malema, has come out and said he'd work with the DA, of all people, as long as the DA agrees with his principles. What do you think of this, Ramon?
It's very funny that someone with no principles says they have principles and you'll work with everyone who has the principles. But unfortunately, Byron, I know it's for purposes of retention, but what are the key principles that Malema will use to work with the DA? Please do enlighten us.
He wants to steal everybody's shit.
DA will not accept that. So therefore, end of video. Thanks for watching, everyone. We're not going to do that. But yes, Malema did come out and said he will work with anyone who agrees on land expropriation without compensation. So basically, Byron, if I'm really honest with you, no one at this stage, because even the ANC is like, not a shit, we're not touching this hot potato.
Yeah, the ANC's already touched this hot potato. They called it the constitutional amendment, and it fucked up. They lost. It didn't really do too well. And so everybody's going, we don't really want to do this one, Malema. We've done that. It didn't go too well. We look like a bunch of plunkers for doing it. Can we do something else? And he said, no, because when you do something that fails, you know what you need to do. Like all communists, you need to do it again and try harder. Come me harder, Ramon. Come me harder.
But the best thing about this interview is that Ronald Lamola, who's the Minister of Justice, useless as all the rest of them, of course, said the problem with Malema is like a flip-flop note, right? He changes his mind whenever the wind changes, and we actually agree with him in this regard. Malema famously said we need lockdown level 5 till Jesus comes back, and then at the drop of a hat, he held a huge mass rally in contravention of lockdown at the time. Of course, nothing happened to him. So yes, Malema is a huge flip-flopper. However, Malema's response to that accusation is a very interesting one. He basically says, how can I be a flip-flopper when I'm the one who determines the political wind in this country? I am the originator. I am the one that determines politically what happens in this country. And, you know, Byron, that may have been the case 3 years ago, but now I think Malema is going to be in for a bit of a hiding come 2024. He is no longer as indispensable as people might believe.
You see, the problem is, Ramon, that this is where Malema comes in. He even drew reference through to the Russian-South Africa debacle. We all know about that, right? And we've done plenty of videos on it. But he basically says that, the problem with the American ambassador is that the American ambassador tarred South Africa's good image. Forgive me, Ramon, when did we get a fucking good image? We have no fucking electricity, mate. Everybody thinks we're a bloody joke. And he's like, oh, we've got this guy discrediting South Africa. No, mate. The ANC did that already. But when we talk about him being the winds of change, he'd actually have to have a proper wind up his arse to have a proper thought in his brain that didn't sound like complete arse trap in the first place. Yeah, I don't know. Like, do we really take this guy seriously?
No, I don't. So Byron thinks the EFF will get 6% in next year's election. I think they'll get closer to 8%. But of course, we will see when the time comes. But importantly, Byron, I think the EFF are putting themselves into a corner by insisting on land expropriation without compensation. Because if no one agrees with it, who is the natural ally or coalition partner of the EFF? No one. So therefore, I think the obvious ANC-EFF coalition is not so obvious anymore, which leads to many other permutations.
If we actually look at this in the world of reality, the problem is that the ANC is currently looking like it will get on track for 50.2%. So we are looking like the ANC may scrape a majority based on existing polling data, which does mean that the much feared scenario of an ANC-EFF coalition looks very unlikely. If the support during the elections doesn't get any better, the ANC is looking like it may lose a majority at, say, 48 to 42% at a worst case scenario. Now, in the all likelihood, as we're seeing a scenario between 46 and 48, which means 4% will prop it up. You don't need the EFF for that 4%. You could get it from the PA, which is already in a coalition agreement with the ANC. They could get it from the IFP, which may get around anywhere between 6 and 7% if it's really good. If it's not, and each party gets, let's say, 3% each, you could probably cobble together a coalition between IFP, ANC, and the PA. That's also very possible. So there are various other permutations now to the dynamic. The EFF is no longer the kingmaker. And that in itself is causing the EFF to have a degree of self-reflection, because the idea that they will naturally be in government come hell or sunshine isn't really that natural anymore. And they may find they get to the next election and they're not actually where they think they are.
And the silver lining in all this is that if the ANC goes to 51%, the ambit for populism, especially left-wing populism, is going to be extremely narrow. I think they understand the populism of Cyril Ramaphosa with EWC and all that has caused it to crash in support, because South Africans don't care about left-wing Soviet-style ideology. But if it goes to below that and it needs the IFP and PA to prop it up, the IFP and the PA are not socialist parties. The IFP is expressly anti-socialist, and the PA, the PA released sort of the manifesto. Gator McKenzie was on a podcast, and he basically said, bring God back, we don't export raw minerals, bring back the death penalty, bring back military conscription, and get rid of race. It doesn't really sound left-wing to me. It's arguably the most right-wing political party in South Africa at the moment. So if the IFP and the PA and the ANC are in a coalition in time to come, it could force the ANC to become a lot more pragmatic and sort of neoliberal as well, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, now for those of you who look at that and go, neoliberal, ANC. Well, the ANC was neoliberal once upon a time, was there underneath Mbeki. Also the era where the ANC enjoyed the most support from the electorate and the economy actually was on the increase. So arguably, if the ANC gets through to 2024 and sees its electoral support decline, it may go, you know what, we need to return to the Mbeki type era in order to never get this close to electoral defeat again. That's the best case scenario, chaps. Worst case scenario is the ANC doubles down on all the bullshit that got it into this scenario in the first place. So what actually ends up happening? Who knows?
But for the purposes of this particular video, the anti-EFF coalition is a possibility, but it's not the only possibility. And in fact, depending on how the chips fall after the next election, it could be, funny enough, the least likely possibility, because the ANC will know, and we will know, whether the EFF are even needed. And if they do decline in popularity, there's less inclination for the ANC to go with a party that is declining in popularity. They will want to go with parties that are increasing in popularity. And for that, there's only really the IFP and the PA, to my mind. The DA might be a bit flat.
Yeah, so this is actually something that Gayton turned us onto, and it was actually a very interesting notion. He actually said, if you actually look at the political parties in South Africa and you look at their electoral support, what you find is that the three main political parties, ANC, EFF, and DA, are all actually got electoral declines. And actually, if you look at the graph in terms of vote numbers, whilst they get a decent percentage of the vote, the amount of the vote of the electorate that they take is actually on the decline, with a lot of the new emerging parties, if you will, taking a lot of the lost vote and even in some instances the new vote. So if you want to look at parties on the increase, then you are looking at the potential parties like Action SA, you are looking at IFP, which is a very well-established and long-term party, and to a large degree you're looking at the PA, which has obviously got a 10-year history in itself. So these parties are all on the natural increase, and so if you were the ANC and you wanted to cobble onto a party that was on the rise, these parties would make natural bedfellows.
But basically, what you need to know watching this video is that the anti-EFF coalition is not the only thing that's going to happen. I think there's many permutations, and I think, and Byron would agree with me, the EFF are on the decline, the ANC knows that as well, and it would make very little sense for the ANC to cobble itself to a declining political party like the EFF. So ideal scenario, funny enough, is probably ANC IFPPA, if we agree on that front.
Yeah, but you see that's also the inevitability of that coalition also seems to me personally a little bit shaky, because it really depends on how the reconfiguration of the ANC alliance goes, even though I think that whole reconfiguration is bullshit. But as we know that there are two big bedfellows of the ANC, namely COSATU and the SACP, that will not be natural bedfellows of the IFP or the PA. I think when it comes through to strikes, Gates will be more inclined to shoot all the strikers, and I think when it comes through to communist parties, well, the IFP are more likely to hang them all. Hey, what am I saying, mate? You're right. This is the best scenario for the country. ANC, PA, IFP, all the way, baby.
Let's do it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.